Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of our amazing new show, She Knows. Now, today's episode is a special, inclusive, diverse episode. I'm super excited to have this guest on. We spent a lot of time together performing, working across different projects, and of course, spending a lot of time at Crown Entertainment Complex, which is a real stable here in Australia. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our guest, then I'm going to introduce them to you, and we're going to get down to it. So, they are a songwriter, entertainer, vocalist, MC, and TV presenter. They also head up Hank Lives Here Productions. They identify as gender non-binary. They are the lead singer of a band, Ladyhood. There's 49,500 Instagram followers. And this amazing guest has supported the likes of Aerosmith, Daryl Braithwaite. They have performed at the F1 Grand Prix, the Melbourne Cup, and the Sydney Mardi Gras. It's Brihony Dawson. How are you?
I
almost got there.
Friend. I know. Even I stuff it up sometimes. I she myself all the time.
Now, our show, of course, is called She Knows, and we've gone to market shining a light on amazing women doing amazing things. But I want you to maybe to take the opportunity, give me a bit of a lesson or a better understanding of how you identify and this conversation that we need to have. And just tell me all about it.
Well, I identify as gender non-binary, so I don't sort of fit into the female, I guess, or woman spectrum of gender, and I don't fit into the male spectrum of gender either. I just sort of fit somewhere in the middle. And it's sort of, I guess, a way I've been feeling. If I really think back, it's something that I've felt for a really long time. I just never knew what it was. I didn't know how to process that feeling. And there were no role models for me growing up to be, well, maybe I feel this way, or there's this great person. Like growing up, I always sort of felt different. And I really didn't know how to process those feelings. I didn't know what they meant. And there was just no role models. I didn't know it was a possibility to be not a woman. Vagina owners are women, which is what everyone thinks. And it's really breaking down those feelings, but then deconstructing the way that people and society we're told to think about gender, as opposed to like your sex, which are two completely different things. It's fascinating the way people feel about gender and how important it is, especially to men and their gender and what it means to be a man and those stereotypical things and just the language we use and you could talk for a whole bloody day about gender and how we're supposed to feel about it. And once you start unwrapping that and being like, well, I don't feel that way about that, and you just have a human element about it other than woman and man, it kind of eases the pressure a little bit as well. And it's really hard language wise to stop saying she, her, his, him. But we do it all the time. We use they, them pronouns all the time. For if you don't know the gender of someone, you say they. But a lot of people, and for years, if you don't know the gender, you use male pronouns. The sound guy is always the sound guy. You're this guy, you're that guy, the only thing that's typically a woman is a car, and so it's a challenge to break down those language barriers and those perceptions of gender and what that means.
Yeah, totally. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to learning so much on today's episode. I have to ask, we do this with all of our guests, and I know your answer is going to be somewhat skewed because you're in lockdown. So maybe give me an idea of what does a typical day in the life of Brihony Dawson look like pre and during lockdown?
Yeah. Okay. So it's just go, go, go. Like I guess my business and my profile as an entertainer has grown exponentially in the last couple of years. I've really put a lot of effort and drive and focus into it, and I think I've built myself up to be one of the entertainers in Victoria, at least, like, in our local sort of community of artists. And so, yeah, it would just be go, go, go. I'd get up. I spent a lot of time, hustling like you, Brando, hustling, getting the next gig, making sure I've got that quick turnaround time from inquiry to, the email back and your quote and that kind of stuff, and qualifying your leads and all that. And then the night times are mainly gigs, like any night of the week. And yeah, just sort of prepping for those. And I love looking at the fashion side of everything as well. So I love shopping, love seeing how I can sort of turn up to a gig in the best possible way. And now during lockdown, all of that's out the window. I sleep in, I eat my Wheat Bix, I talk on a podcast, and that'll be the highlight of my bloody day, Brent.
Now, I have to ask, because this is really interesting, especially for a high performer like yourself. There's no doubt going to be things that you've implemented into your routine during lockdown that you weren't previously, that have actually become a real godsend, or they've improved your efficiency or your effectiveness. What would maybe one or two of those be?
I think my answer is going to be really boring, but it is like bookkeeping. It's like the back end of all of that stuff. I was one of those people who, did had 5 or 6 years of tax that I hadn't done, and and I've gotten a lot better at it. And I was like, how can I make this easier for myself? I'll do it at the end of every month, and then I will have like a snapshot of what my business looks like and where I can improve. And it's been really good. But God, I'm just not I'm not a sit still person, but I am quite analytical. So it's I love the end product of seeing all of that stuff in areas that I can improve, but sitting down to fucking do it is just like, I hate it. I really hate it. So when you reconcile those, sorry, go ahead. When I downloaded QuickBooks to do it, I had to I can't click through YouTube videos and stuff to watch that. I booked someone on Airtasker, and I had this guy, and he gave me a lesson online, and he was like, yeah, and if if this happens, I was like, that's not what my business does. Don't put that information in my head. Like, I just need to know how it works for my business, like the most easiest thing. So yeah, it's that's one thing that I'll take out of having the time to do that, because I never have time outside of lockdown. Yeah.
So I want to ask you, because you are a business owner and you're also a performer. So I reckon I can relate to the energy and preparation that's required for the performance element. And it's so cool to hear that you've developed a real knack for getting better at the business side. I want to understand from you, how critical is it to contributing to you being able to continue to evolve and get better and better as a performer, feeling like you've got that business side under control?
Yeah, it does. It does, because it also gives me an opportunity to, and especially now because we've all struggled so much in this industry, it gives me an opportunity to get people more work as well, and not just get me more work. So that's what I really like about it, and it has really helped me build really great relationships with other performers. And it's helped me build really great relationships with the people who book me as well, because, entertainers are not the most reliable people in the world.
Mhm.
And so having that was one of my main things when I went and started this business, was I was going to be the different one in the pack. And it was replying to the emails, having the knowledge, and just being so easy to work with, that the next time something comes around, I'm going to be the go-to, because I'm not going to be the most talented person in each in each one of those industries that I work in. I'm not the most talented singer, very far from it, but I can get a booking over somebody who is far better than me, because I'm so easy to work with. And with those booking companies or corporates who don't work in events, and they've got to suddenly put on an event, and they're scrambling and they're stressed, if you can just be like, you just glide on in and you're like, hey, here's everything you wanted. It makes a massive, massive difference. And then they recommend you to other people. And yeah, if I walk out of a gig without a recommendation or another card, I know I haven't done my job.
Excellent. So what's coming to mind here, and I'm not sure if you identify with this title, but some people think it's a bit wanky, but entrepreneur or entrepreneurial. Yeah. So I have to ask you, because what you described there are a couple of concepts that appear to be passed on often by a mentor to someone or a role model. I'm keen to understand when you had that turning point to really be that person you described, and who some of those role models and mentors were that gave that to you.
It's hard to pick one. I'll tell you what the biggest turning point for me was, because I was very, very unreliable in my 20s. Didn't work hard. I didn't not work hard, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So you're dealing with gender, sexuality, all lots of stuff. And I remember meeting, and you will know these people as well, Brandon, when I started working at Crown, and I met people who were at the height of their career. And I'm not saying that Crown is the height of a career, but what I'm saying is those people, those dancers and those performers, they were all at the top of their game. They were getting the gigs in musicals, they were getting on the TV, the ex-Moulin Rouge dancers, ex-Lido dancers, like all this kind of stuff. And I was like, these people have worked at the very top, and they do work at the very top. And I just sort of saw, that I was similar to them. And I was like, well, I could probably work at the top as well. And then that sort of work ethic and the belief that you can achieve the top really sort of helped me turn things around. And that's when I started singing, and that's when I started, my business and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a massive, massive turning point. And then as you go, you meet more and more people, and you get let down, and you've got to pick yourself back up again, and you have really disappointing results sometimes. You go and you try something new, and you're like, well, I'm going to do this, and it doesn't work out, or people don't want what you've got to sell, and you got to be able to just dust that off, and then go and try it again, or change it a bit and try again, and yeah, it's that sort of mindset and determination, knowing what I could do, but just being able to show people any way that I can.
It sounds like what's on the other side of fear, which some may know is nothing. But could you indulge us and the audience who are listening and watching around one of these moments where you did give something a crack, and maybe it didn't come off, but because of what you've developed in yourself now, you were quite able to just dust it off and learn from it?
Yeah. It was singing, like and it was just covers. Like, I was never a singer growing up, but I had this moment sort of in my early 20s where I was pretty depressed, and I was struggling, but I had this perfect job, and I had the car, the house, everything looked like it was great, and I was so unhappy. And then someone said, well, what do you actually want to do? And I was like, well, if I really think about it, I want to be a singer. And they're like, no, like that, but like a real job. And I was like, no, that's what I'm going to do. So the next day I literally quit my job. I sold my house, and went on a path of being a performer. And I sucked in the beginning, and I had like auditions, at Crown. I wanted to sing at Crown because that's where all these great, amazing people were that I'd worked with, and I could work my way up. And I just wanted to get gigs and just sing. And I was working at Crown as a stage manager as well. And I got an audition, and two of the entertainment people who were very good friends of mine came down to see me and this guitarist sing. And we didn't get the gig. Like we didn't get it. And I was like, wow. But then I felt bad for them. Imagine seeing how hard I'm working and then not giving me a gig at Crown. And I was like, fuck. And so I just had to keep going and keep working. And there's another company that I work for, Song Division, who are just one of the most amazing companies I've ever worked for. And they were the first ones to really take a risk with me emceeing their events. And my first event was for McDonald's, so like a massive client, and you had to be the best. And I was, and I emceed and I sang and we did this stuff, and people were like, oh my God, that you were the best I've ever seen. What, how, what, why, when? And I was like, okay, cool. This is like, so finding my niche of what I have to offer it's not really singing, because I'm not the best singer in the world. I get away with it, but I'm not the best singer in the world. But I consider myself an entertainer, and that's such a hard thing to sell when you're emceeing and you sing and you're kind of doing this sort of hybrid role, and you're this and you're that. And why am I better than someone who sings like Beyonce and can hit all these high notes and that? And that is hard to sell to someone. It's the vibe. And you're like, totally. You can't, that's not something that they can hold and be like, oh yeah, this looks really good. Well, yeah. So yeah, it's a difficult thing to sell, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. What comes to mind hearing that is I'm a big fan of Robbie Williams. And for example, I rate him as probably one of the best entertainers. But underlying that also is a pretty solid and talented ability at songwriting.
Yeah.
Now, you head up lead vocals and you write for Ladyhood Music, which people should definitely check out. And I think a little while back when we interacted at Crown, you may have recently returned from a songwriting trip to Nashville, or maybe you'd spent some time. I think you did spend a lot of time abroad. Talk to me about your journey, then learning how to songwrite and apply that to your band, and then bring it to life in a live environment.
It's songwriting is probably my favorite part. I think even more than performing them live. I love the songwriting because I love the collaborative process. I love working with really, really talented people. I always make sure I'm the least talented in the room. And so, being able to go overseas and work in LA and Nashville, Vienna, and just with these incredible artists who, again, are all at the top of their game, and they raise you even higher. And they respect you. And we're working on these songs. I wrote a couple in Nashville, and then I wrote most of them in LA with a whole bunch of people. But just it made me a really, really good songwriter. And now it comes so naturally when we're trying to write a song. And I do a lot of corporate songwriting experiences and that kind of stuff, and just working through that stuff. And just now being able to sit in that talent and know that that's what I'm good at, it's really, really nice.
I can remember you telling me that you were lucky enough to see, I think, Sheryl Crow live in concert in Nashville.
Yes. Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, it was off the chart. It was off the chart. She came, we went to see this other guitarist, and then she just got up and sang a couple of songs, and I was just like, oh my God. She's definitely one of my faves, Sheryl Crow. And that's the thing I love about LA and Nashville. I mean, those two places in particular, there's so much history there, and I had had an interview, or, had a coffee with this lady, Judy Stakey, who's one of a great songwriter, and she worked with Sheryl Crow. She was one of the ones who found Sheryl Crow and produced her and got her to where she is. And when I met her for a coffee, she was like, it's so weird that you've said to meet at this place. This exact table is where Sheryl Crow wrote Santa Monica Boulevard. And she was like, that petrol station, the gas station over there, it used to be a car wash. And she was like, this the whole, and I was, yeah. So, and I filmed one of my video clips in Charlie Chaplin's old apartment, and like that kind of history, you just don't get over here. And so there's just a vibe when you're in LA and you're surrounding yourself with those people and those places. It's just like electric, and it really does bring out the best in you.
Yeah. It definitely sounds like the immersion part of that environment plays a part in lifting your performance. It also sounds like, and I've heard this said before, that it's treated like a business, which it should be. And someone like you, no doubt, has had that rub off, because it appears you're applying so much of that in this smaller environment. I want to ask you, when we do return to some form of normal, how can an artist in Australia better adapt themselves to be able to compete and stand out at that level, knowing that they might not be able to enter that environment physically as quickly or as easily?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I have worked with a few people over here, and there just isn't the talent and the belief in Australia that Americans have. They believe that you can be the next huge fucking thing, and then when you're in that writing session, that's what they're writing for. Whereas some sessions that I've been in over here, people don't believe in that. They're not writing for you to be the next big thing. They're kind of getting through the session a little bit and trying to make the song as good as they can. And so it's just it's a little bit of a weird a weirder environment. That's why I always go over and write in the States. I think the best thing that people can do if you want to songwrite is to write with as many people as possible. And even if it's over Zoom, even like, I've done so many songwriting sessions over Zoom, to be able to end up with these great songs. And people think it's like, but most of songwriting is actually you sitting there thinking about what you're going to write and getting it together and that kind of stuff. And so that's easy to do over Zoom. You know what I mean? And you have to make a couple of little changes here and there so that you can sing in time and a beat with a melody and that kind of stuff. But to just throw a melody through Zoom is pretty easy to a producer. So yeah, I'd get on the Zoom, get out.
Get on the Zoom. I think it was one person telling me the other day that when we record over Zoom, often you'll have to, in post-production, reverse the vision back about 5 frames, because I think human beings are used to getting the sound first, I think, and the visual can be late. But I think
Yeah.
Zoom prioritizes the visual first, so audio is delayed.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's leading to a lot of people talking over each other. And no, you go, you go, you go. But this is awesome. Now, I just want to flick back to what we talked about at the very head of the episode, because I want our audience to be able to walk away with at least one insight from this topic. Now, through your journey, you've no doubt faced gender-specific challenges potentially. Maybe you've even witnessed others and you've kind of taken it upon yourself to get involved and help. I'd love to hear about maybe one in particular that you've been able to get a really cool outcome from, and you feel like you've made a positive impact to getting it there quicker for others.
Yeah. It has been really challenging, especially because I'm masculine presenting. And so people often think I'm a man, which is not the case. And for me, the biggest challenge is public toilets. Because we're all a little bit vulnerable when we go into a public toilet. We may not think about it consciously, but we are. We're like, yeah. And I use women's public toilets unless there is a gender neutral bathroom. Definitely not using the men's. They're hideous.
Hang on, this is a hot topic. Dude, because
what are you guys doing there? It's like you just shit in your hands and you throw it everywhere. You're like monkeys. We've
now just got the bite we were looking for to promote this episode.
Oh yeah, it's anyway. So yeah, I use the women's toilets and I think there is a man. I would say 98% of the time they think there is a man in the toilets. And that is really confronting for me. And there's a lot of times that men have followed me into the women's toilets as well, because they're just like, oh, I'll just follow that dude, and they don't bother looking at the signs. And so I have been absolutely berated in public toilets. It's like just I cannot believe people would speak to someone in public like that. So yeah, that's quite challenging. And I'm happy to talk to people about it. Not everyone is, because it can be really, really draining, especially if you're still coming to terms with who you are and what your gender means to you and where you fit. And that can change. Gender is fluid, One day you can be feeling a bit like this, the other day you can be feeling like this. And some people switch pronouns. They start off with they and them, and then, on another day they might be feeling a bit more she, her. And so they, which is then challenging to navigate also. The one thing that I would say to people, if we're talking just about pronouns and how to talk to someone, is you can just ask someone what their pronouns are and get into the habit of saying what your pronouns are, because we don't want to be the only people saying what our fucking pronouns are, So putting your he, him on your Instagram handle or your email signature or something like that can make a huge difference, and shows that you're an ally without, wearing a fucking rainbow flag, to your team meetings. You know what I mean? And just being able to ask someone when you get introduced, you could be like, hi, Brandon, my pronouns are he, him. Do you mind if I ask what your pronouns are? Simple.
Yeah.
Then when you hear them, use them.
I love
it. And everyone stuffs it up. Everyone, like, I, she, myself, and you see how easy it is to do. And that's not the point. The point is your intention. And if your intention is to treat this person with respect and show that you are an ally and you want to make them comfortable in every situation, that's great. it's just because you, she or he, someone, does not, it's not the end of the world.
Yep.
And you just try not to make a huge deal out of it. And if you think it's had an effect, then you can just talk to that person after and just say, really sorry about before when I used the wrong pronoun. I'm really trying, and I hope that you can see that. And that's all it takes. It's not this huge, big thing. And if you're trying to get into the habit of using someone's pronouns, or what my wife did to start getting used to it, was she just used my name a little bit more. So instead of saying she'll just go, Bryony did this, Bryony did that, instead of they, or just to like ease it off a little bit and navigate her own language of where she was going to fit in the they and the thems and the all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, excellent. That's awesome. Now, I just want to ask, I'll cut this bit out, but do you have like 5 more minutes so I can still grab that 5 with you after this? Like what time you got the next one?
Yeah. 11:30. Yeah.
All right. I'll chuck 2 more questions in. So I know we're running out of your time very quickly, Bryony, but I want to ask you, we've heard this statement said a lot, you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
So if you were to flick back to Bryony at age 10, 12, 15, who, if anyone, could you see that you felt like you could reference and relate to? And what advice would you give that age Bryony?
I mean, there was literally no one. There was no one when I was growing up. When I was those kind of ages, was like, the early 90s into the mid to late 90s. And like being a lesbian was seen as no. There was fucking Melissa Etheridge, Katie Lang, and bloody Ellen eventually. And it was just like, no thanks. And I got teased a lot because people thought I was gay, long before I did. And yeah, so it was just nothing that I wanted to be. There was no one to look up to. And, especially then, anyone that had any kind of ambiguity about their gender, like there was just no one. Like Prince, maybe. But anybody remotely trans was always a laughing stock, or they're murdered on a TV show. That's like, that's it. That's where trans people got, and that, so there really wasn't anything until I think I was sort of like early 20s, and the L Word, a TV show came on, and it was about the life of lesbians. There was a character in there, Shane, who was just the coolest cool ever, and she would wear masculine clothes, and I was like, that's me, that is me right there. And I remember buying my first men's shirt, and it was the most like horrifying experience ever. And then I got back to my friends, and they're like, do you know men's shirt? And I was like, oh god. And like the people in the shop just were mean to me, and this was like in Sydney on like like the main sort of Mardi Gras area, and yeah, they were still like, is this for your boyfriend? And I was like, absolutely not, let me tell you that right now. So yeah,
love it.
So that you can't be what you can't see is huge, and I know it's said all the time now, but it is 100% true. And if I can be a role model for people, even just being able to see someone that looks like me and is fine with their gender identity on Instagram, that's great. I've done my job. You don't need to be on every fucking pride committee in every business that do it. It's just about it's just about visibility sometimes at the end of the day, just being able to see it.
Yeah. So I got one last question for you. You've been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
For everyone watching and listening, we are going to do this in studio as soon as we can when we have our roundtable show, which I would love Bryony to be a part of. What's your biggest fear or biggest fears?
Oh, my biggest fear. I think it's probably that I will somehow end up going back to being that really unreliable, unmotivated person that I was, because I have the capability to be that person. And yes, I've grown. Like, that was in my 20s, you know, like we are all not the same as we were in our 20s. And yeah, so I'm really conscious of that kind of stuff. And sometimes I see it in the you know, in the times where I am really busy, and you're manically busy. You've got like 3 gigs in one day. You're packing all your outfits in the morning. You're making sure you're well fed. I've got to give time to my wife. We pat the dog. You go, you know, all of that. And you're winding yourself up, and you're like, whoa, okay, why am I going like this at 100 miles an hour? It's, you know, maybe I shouldn't have booked the 3rd gig now in the, you know. And I think we do that because, one, we don't know when the next gig's coming along. But 2, yeah, I think I'm scared to I think I've got to keep pushing myself away from that person who was quite sad, unsuccessful, you know, and be this person and just keep going and going and going.
It's a good motivator.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on our show. This is going to turn out awesome. How can people not just check you out, but how can they collaborate, participate, and get involved in your journey? Where can we do that?
Yeah, the best place is just on Instagram. I share a lot of my life and all the journeys that I'm on at the moment, especially my sports broadcasting career, and now mine and my wife's IVF journey. So you can go to Ladyhood Music, which is on Instagram.
Love it. Brihony Dawson, thank you so much, and can't wait to do it all again.
Thanks, Brando.